Hello everyone, welcome back to the Java interview questions preparation series. In last video we gone through a couple of questions related to the interfaces. So we covered some of the questions regarding interfaces. We have a couple of questions left back. So today in this session we are going to continue with the interface topic and we are going to talk about remaining questions about the interfaces. So without further delay, let's get started. So the next question that you may get around interface is, can interface contains a main method? So yes, interface can contain a main method. The main method is basically a static method and the static methods are allowed inside the interfaces. So we can add these main method over here. And as the main method is a static method, we don't require an object to be created in order to execute that method. That is the reason we can execute that static method directly and we can have that main method inside the interface. So only one thing that we need to keep in mind is this particular feature, that is static method, is added Java 8 onwards. So below Java 8 it will not support, but on Java 8 onwards it will definitely support. So let's try to do with example. So if I just go back to the IntelliJ, previously in the last video we created these interface called as a remote control. So inside this interface itself, let me just try to add public static void main, and we can just add string arguments, something like this. And now if I just try to give some message like this is main method, if I just try to give some message, we are not getting any error over here. And in order to run this, we can just directly click inside the IntelliJ on the run button and we can run it. Or else if we just want, we can just run this main method using using the any command line arguments, or by different ways also. But the main intention is this particular interface can have the main method, and as we have added the main method and we are also able to run the main method, so answer is pretty simple. We can have the main method inside the interfaces. Then the next question that we can get around the interface is, what happens if a class implements multiple interfaces having the same methods, or what happens if a class implements two interfaces that have the same default method? So you may get some questions around it, like there is one class and it is implementing multiple interfaces. So we have couple of scenarios. We will try to understand those scenarios by the examples. So the answer is pretty simple. If the both of the interfaces contains same abstract method, there will not be any issue. But if the interfaces contains the same default methods, in that case we might get the issue, like we will get the compilation error. So we have to resolve those error, and one interface has a default method and another interface has abstract method. So in that case we will not face any issue. We will just try to implement we will just try to execute this code and try to understand it in a better way. So in order to understand, what I'll just do, I'll just go back to IntelliJ and I'll just create two different interfaces. So first of all, I'll just create one interface, let's suppose printer, like this. And similarly, I will create one more interface, let's suppose display, like this. Now inside this interface, what I will just do, I'll just add one default method. So first of all, let's add one abstract method. So what I'll just do, I'll just add void display, and just to understand, I'll just give the name as display abstract, something like this. I will also add one default method. So how we can do, we can just use default, then void, and then display default, something like this. And here we have to give the body. So let me just use inside default method from display interface, something like this. And again, I'll just add one more thing. I'll just add one static method also, like display static, something like this. And I'll just add one similar message inside static method from display interface. One more thing that I'll just do is I'll just add one more method in this case, which will be a default method. Like, let me just give the name as, let's suppose, uh, show, something like this. And let me just give the message inside default show method from display interface. So this is the interface that I have created. We have one abstract method, then two default methods and one static method also. Now what we can just do, we can just copy this particular code and we can just go to the printer interface and we can just paste this code as it is. So right now our two interfaces contains exact same code. One thing that I would like to change is this time, inside the printer interface, I don't want to keep this show method as a default method. Instead, I want to keep this as an abstract method because I just want to show you different scenarios like this. And now let me just go and let me just create one class, and the class name should be, let's suppose, a computer, like this. And now the computer class implements our printer interface and also a display interface. Now over here we are getting error. Obviously we have to implement some of the methods from printer and display. So now if you just hover on it, you will just get the suggestion to implement methods, and as soon as I click on OK, it will implement the abstract methods. So it is implementing um, display abstract method and show method over here. Obviously, we will not be able to implement the static method. So by this, what we understood, if our interfaces, multiple interfaces contains the same static methods, then there will not be any issue. Like as of now, our printer interface contains the display static method, exact same method our display interface contains. So in this case, we are not getting any errors over here. So what I'll just do, I'll just go back to the computer interface, and right now it has implemented display abstract method. So over here we have the abstract method inside the printer, which is display abstract method. So, and similarly we also have display abstract method inside the display interface. So we are able to um, overwrite that particular method. So whenever if interface contains the abstract method in a multiple interfaces, then we will not face any issue. We will be able to override it, and whatever message that we want, we can just give it and give the message over here. Then talking about the show method, again inside the printer the show method is abstract method, and inside the display the show method is a default method. So in this case also we will not face any issue. We will be able to override it. Okay. Now still we have some errors. So what kind of errors we have? We have these particular errors because of these default display default method. So right now what is happening, that inside the display interface we have display default method, exact same method we have inside the printer interface also. So our computer class is in confusion from which interface this particular method needs to be referred. So here we are getting we have the confusion. So by this what we understood, we cannot use two default methods, like two exact same methods inside the two different interfaces. So this is what we understood, right? Because here for the default method, it is giving us the error. So as soon as I comment out this default method, it should start working. So if I just comment out this default method, it will start working. There will not be any errors over here. So now let me just again remove the commented code, and if I just go back to the computer, again we started getting the error. Now in order to resolve the error, what we have to do, we have to override these default methods. So what we have to do, we have to override this particular display default method. So let me just overwrite the display default method, and as soon as I overwrite the display default method, we we are not getting the error. So it is completely fine, and the code is working as expected. So this is how we can resolve the issues. So again, just a quick recap what we understood. If the interfaces contains same abstract method in both interface, then there will not be any issue. If we have the same default methods in both interfaces, then we will get compilation error, but we can resolve it by overriding the method inside a class. And suppose if we have a situation where one interface has a default method and another has as an abstract method, then again there will not be any issue, because we will be overriding that method inside the class. So we will not face any issue. There will not be any confusion. So this is how the interfaces works when we work with the multiple interfaces. Now, the next question that we may get around is, how does multiple inheritance work with interfaces in a Java, or how to achieve multiple inheritance in a Java? So again, it is pretty simple. Just now we saw the example. So if I just go back, and if I just show you the computer class, we are implementing multiple interfaces like printer and display. So over here, we are achieving the multiple inheritance. So if I just go to the presentation, um, Java allows multiple inheritance using interfaces. So we cannot use multiple inheritance using classes, but we can use multiple inheritance using interfaces. A class can implement multiple interfaces. Obviously, just now we seen the example, and an interface can extend multiple interfaces. So a class can implement multiple interfaces, and an interface can extend multiple interfaces. So this is how we can, like, we use multiple interfaces. Now the main intention of using multiple interfaces, or the main intention of using multiple inheritance is, um, a class can implement behavior from different interfaces. So in this case, the computer can um, achieve behavior from printer as well as display. So it can achieve, like, computer class can achieve behavior from different interfaces. So in this case, we can use multiple inheritance using the interface. So this is how this particular concept works. So I'm just not going to show you example again, because just now we have achieved this one. Now, there are a couple of quick questions that we may get around interfaces. Can interface be a final interface? So the answer is pretty simple, no, because interfaces are meant to be implemented by other classes, and final keyword prevents inheritance or implementation. Okay, so that is the reason we cannot use a final keyword with the interfaces. If I just go back, and if inside the display interface, if I just try to add a final keyword, then over here we will get the error. The error will be like, modifier final is not allowed here. The reason is because interface needs to be implemented by other classes, and final keyword restricts in that implementation. So that is the reason we cannot use a final over here. Now the next question is, what are the marker interfaces? So marker interfaces are basically interfaces having no any methods or fields. It is just like empty interfaces, and it is used to mark a class so that special behavior can be assigned to it. So an interface without any body is called as a marker interface. We have couple of examples like serializable interface or clonable interface. So basically with the help of these like marker interfaces, we can achieve some special behavior in certain scenarios. Maybe we will cover this particular topic in the next sessions, but the scope of the marker interface is just like a empty interface. Then the next question is, what are functional interfaces? So functional interfaces are nothing but the interfaces having exactly one abstract method, and these functional interfaces are mainly used while we work with the lambda expressions. So we have already seen these. When we work with the lambda expressions, we mainly use a functional interface, and functional interface is nothing but having the interface which is having only one abstract method. Other than abstract method, it can contain anything. It can contain default method, static method, or any type of variables, like any number of variables, but the abstract method should be only one abstract method. So this is how the functional interfaces works. And now lastly, uh, we have to understand the basic difference between interface and abstract class. So in terms of multiple inheritance, we can achieve multiple inheritance using interfaces, but we cannot achieve multiple inheritance using abstract class. When we talk about methods, an interface can contain abstract method, default methods, and static methods. On the other hand, the abstract class can contain abstract methods and non-abstract methods also. Then when we talk about variables, um, the interface can contain public static final variables only. So we cannot give like non-static variables or instance variables inside the interface. The interface can contain only public static final variables. On the other hand, abstract class can contain any type of variables with any access modifier. Talking about constructor, interface doesn't support constructor, and abstract class can support the constructor. And talking about uses, interfaces are mainly used for defining a contract like behavior without any implementation. And abstract classes are mainly used for code reusability like partial implementation. As we have already seen, uh, abstract classes can contain abstract methods as well as the other non-abstract methods also. So it is kind of a partial implementation, and main purpose of writing the abstract classes are doing code reusability. So this is the basic difference between interfaces and abstract class. So I think till now we have covered most of the questions that we may get around interfaces in an interview. If you still have any questions, let me know into a comment section. I will try my best to help you out in that case. I hope you enjoyed this session, and I'll see you in the next session.